everyone. Thank you for joining us. The previous session hasn't quite ended, so I'm sure as we get along, people will start trickling in. I just wanted to explain the session very briefly. So like previous days, we're holding a climate open mic first. And the intention behind this is to create an open discussion space where you can discuss ideas or questions raised through previous sessions or anything that's been is related to the conference and has already been on your mind previously. And I invite my colleague Mahona to introduce what will be happening next.
So thank you, Kelly. I would request all of you to consider this as an open and very informal discussion. And to start today's discussion, we have with us Sneha. It will be open through her wonderful presentation called Climate Change as a Risk Driver for the World Heritage Site, Victorian, Gothic and Art Deco Ensembles of Mumbai. Sneha is an architect currently working with Intact Heritage Academy in New Delhi and coordinating the PG Diploma in Heritage Studies, visiting faculty at Kamla Raheja Vidyanidhi Institute of Architectural and Environmental Studies, and has worked on Izzat Khan's mosque at her native town, Bharut. She received the Intact Research Scholarship 2020-2021 to conduct a research on climate risk assessment for the World Heritage Site, Victorian, Gothic and Art Deco Ensembles of Mumbai. So with this, I invite Sneha to present her work.
Okay, is my screen visible?
Yes, it is.
Yes,
thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much first for inviting me to take this session here and also having an open mic for day 3. So I would like to start with the background that, it was in 2019 where I came across a newspaper article which showed the IPCC report that by 2050 there will be many major cities of India which might be just under which would be submerged, and Bombay would be one of those cities. And this came in 2019, and it was released as soon as Mumbai received its nomination as a UNESCO World Heritage Site in 2018 at the 42nd session of the UNESCO World Heritage Committee. It was nominated under criteria 2 and 4. So this was when I realized that, it just struck me that, we have such a beautiful nomination, and now within a few years, or within 2 decades, it would be just underwater. So what could be done? And I came across the climate risk assessment, which was done by Historic Environment Scotland. And I also came across with the scholarship, which was offered at Intact Heritage Academy. And I just, I applied to the scholarship, and I was able to conduct a climate risk assessment for the site. I'm just sharing a very small, I think just less than 1% of the work which was done as a part of this research, where, there were these 3 time slices which were identified. That was 2030, 2050, 2070, and it assessed the values of economic, social, and cultural, and its dependency on the World Heritage Site of Bombay. So I'm sharing the risk analysis which was done for 2050, where the major climate drivers which were identified were precipitation change, storm intensity and frequency, extreme temperature events, and storm surge. Now, these were all, there were these climate risk matrices which were undergone, which were studied, and an analysis was done, and it was understood that the OUV vulnerability by 2050 was quite high. And at the economic, social, and cultural dependency was moderate negative, potential impact was high, adaptive capacity was moderate, and community vulnerability was also moderate. Now, I'm not going much in detail on what these terms mean because it's a part of another research. But would like to discuss on what can be a possible strategies or possible solutions to protect or to save the World Heritage Site. So, if we go back in the geography or in history, it cannot be ignored that that Bombay was originally just 7 islands. They were basically archipelago of islands which were always submerged when there was a high tide, and it was British who came and who kind of reclaimed all these islands, and that is how we got Bombay. So if we say that this site is going to be submerged, it is not something that is something which is against its nature. It is basically nature will take back with what it belonged to it. So how should we find a solution to this, where we are not basically combating nature by building retaining walls or barriers, but rather going with what we can do with the nature. This image is of the Marine Drive, where you have an entire stretch of Art Deco buildings, and then in the interior you have the Victorian Gothic and so on. So one of the solutions which I came across is that you learn from the past, you take the knowledge system from the past. So this is an image of the Varanasi Ghats, where they are designed in such a manner that when during monsoons or when there is heavy rainfall, these ghats are basically submerged underwater, and you are not able to walk on these ghats during monsoon, but it does not damage the structures which are along these ghats. And when we go in summer, you can actually walk past on all these ghats. Like you can actually have a long stretch walking around, walking on the banks of the river Ganga. So this was something which was done, and it was understood while they were designing the ghats earlier. So can we learn something from the past? Another is where you try to learn, take knowledge from what the nature has, basically basically adapt to the properties of what nature has. So mangroves, salt marshes, they have always protected coastal erosion, and has reduced the impact of storm surges. So when we are trying to have a solution of fighting climate change, why can't we include them? Why can't we include these learnings from nature? And as a solution, which I thought what could be working, could be a possible strategy, is where you could have maybe a retaining wall, and which can basically protect during high tides and during rise in sea or waters. But you can also have a promenade running just on the sides of that retaining wall, where you have mangroves which can grow, of course, in salt water and salt marshes. So where you are basically trying to protect your World Heritage Site, but you are also trying to not say that no, you cannot enter in the city, but you are basically giving back to what its original nature was. So basically, how this a solution which is where you are building with nature and learning from past. Another solution is that India has various step wells all over the country. Of course, they are known with different names, and they were earlier, the function was to store water. But can we use a similar concept as reservoirs within our World Heritage Site? So one of the solution which I thought was that, can we have a reservoir, maybe one or two reservoirs built in the Medan, of course, which does not affect the OUV value or OUV of the World Heritage, but where you basically you can just step down into these reservoirs during summers, or when there is not no rains, and you can use that as an activity area. And when there is heavy rainfall, they can actually use to store water. And you can also have a system of having rainwater harvesting, where all the water is collected and it is actually used in the nearby Art Deco buildings which are on this stretch. um, Another solution is where we can start having capacity building and education. So when I was working on these solutions, I came across where the Dutch have been already doing a lot, where they have encouraged their citizens. School children are trained to swim with clothes on, with shoes on, so as to protect themselves whenever they are stuck, or whenever there is flooding. If we compare the situation with what we have in Bombay, where I think almost every monsoon there is flooding, but I do not know how many people of us can know actually how to survive when they're stuck in a flood. So such kind of solutions could be designed, where the citizens are encouraged to save themselves, basically to protect themselves. Again, I came across this from the Dutch, where they have a GPS guided app, which is always there on the citizens' mobile phones, where they know exactly how far are they from the sea level, so that when they know that there's going to be a rise in sea level, they could literally just evacuate their houses before that, and basically just protect themselves. Another was where there was this manual which was prepared in 2002, which talked about on how should the owners and occupiers protect and conserve their own properties. So I think it is the time now where this manual needs to be revised, where the owners are also trained to work with the changing climate on what possible things they should do, or understand when there is climate change. So I think this needs to be taken forward, and there needs to be a review done in this manual. Again, as a climate change as a risk driver, uh, to be honest, the World Heritage Site of Bombay is somewhere here. And if you look at the plan of Bombay, you literally have so many waterfronts here. So this solution can be a risk driver as a pilot project for one, and it can be actually applied to the other waterfronts in Bombay. So can this research be a climate driver for other waterfronts in Bombay? I would like to end by saying that, if we wait for governments, it might be too late. If we act as individuals, it will be too little. But if we act as a community, it might just be enough and just in time. So thank you so much for having me here.
Thank you, Sneha. That was a wonderful presentation. And with that, I open the floor for discussions. And please do write in the chat if you have any questions, or you can just open your microphone and start the conversation. And I do have a question for you, Sneha, because I am from Calcutta, and we also recently had a World Heritage listing. And I wanted to
Right.
ask you actually that when we submit these dossiers for the listing, do you think we should pre-plan, or we should kind of visualize these projects or the impact of this listing on climate, and not think of projects after the listing has come through?
Right. Right. So, when I was actually, to be honest, I'm not prepared any nomination dossier, but while conducting this research, I have gone through the nomination dossier thoroughly for the Victorian Gothic. So it is not that they have not considered. They do go through the management disaster. They do have a disaster management plan prepared. They do have mitigation strategies in place, but I don't think so. They have taken climate change as a major impact or a major risk to what they could see to the site. Okay, but it is not that they are not considering it. I think it needs to be taken much more deeper now. So I think that is what I would say.
Thank you. Yeah, that's a very good point. I invite all our attendees to kindly open their microphones or put your questions in the chat if you have any comments or questions.
I'm quite glad I have someone from the entire Heritage Academy joining.
I see that.
While we also maybe wait for other people in the audience to ask a question, I don't know if you were probably busy presenting, but the fact that you mentioned Dutch examples, because I'm half Dutch, and I didn't even know that GPS app existed. So I just want to say thank you as well for bringing it to my attention. And then maybe more of a comment, and then also inviting others to think about it. But I thought it was really interesting that you raised the Dutch example about swimming lessons, because I am Dutch, but I grew up internationally. But then they still, even if you live in another country, you still learn swimming in clothes in another country. So my experience was in the UK that other people at the pool didn't know why all these children were swimming around in clothes and having to do all these exercises. But it's because it's such a big part of Dutch culture to ensure that every citizen, to the best of their ability, can swim, because there's so much water everywhere. That I think what it raised for me is that it's really about changing behavior. And then I don't know enough about the history of the swimming diploma, but I can imagine that there was some point where it wasn't normal and not everyone could swim. But it was, as you said with that last quote that you shared, that it's about coming together as a community, realizing what's important, and that we have to change our behaviors in order to, it's part of the solution or the response. So I think then what I would want to ask our audience or our fellow discussants here today is if there are any other examples about local or community examples about changed behavior that responds to the impact of climate change, or some of the impacts of climate change, because of course for the Dutch it's separate. It works for climate change, but because we live on so much water, it's a very necessary thing, but it happens to be very useful in response to more flooding. So I hope there's someone who would like to take that on.
We have a question in the chat from Saima. I will read it out. I was wondering if you have done any studies regarding what kind of coastal risks actually do exist, or the frequency of floods and the impacts on the site they have already had.
Right. Yes, of course, I have done this study. So basically, there was an action plan which was prepared by the Maharashtra government. So Mumbai comes under the state of Maharashtra, so they had an climate action plan. But of course, the drawback was that they didn't include heritage in that. But they did compare the worst flood which we had in 2005, in 7, 9, 13, and so on. So they did an analysis which was actually a base study for my work too, because to be honest, I'm a conservation architect. I'm not a geologist, or maybe a person who could actually have a forecast of what things were happening. So I was very much dependent on their study, which helped me to understand. In fact, the time slices that I was mentioning about 2030, 2050, 2070 is the time slice which they have actually analyzed, that what would be the temperature, rise in temperature or rise in sea levels and so on. So it is basically, I'm just taking their study ahead with respect to the World Heritage Site. So yes, of course, I have done that prior study of coastal risk and floods and what impact it can have.
Going off of what you were also just saying about the time slices that you took,
Right.
I was very intrigued when you were talking about creating a type of manual or working together with the local owners, right, about how they should respond. And I was wondering if in your research as well, you came across these similar types of time slices, but then being communicated to the owners as a way to think about the future. Like imagine you were saying the time slices were 2050, 2070, right?
Right, 2030, 2050, 2070, yeah.
Yes. Is for the local owners, do those times also factor into their own risk assessments, or
to be honest, the study which was done was mainly only on the built heritage which was there, and one of the reasons why I want to take the study forward is for these reasons, that the people who are living there, they don't know that they might be under risk. The point is that. So I think and to be honest, I think like I said, we are working as individuals. I'm working as an individual in the city with this. So I need, maybe a platform needs to be created where we can have these people, where we can have at least the leaders of this group, where maybe they can be aware of what can be done, or what risk their houses could be at, or the places where they stay, what risk they have. So I think it needs to be taken, which I think I'm not yet able to take this work to them.
Thank you. That's very, I think that's come up in our other sessions throughout the week so far, about the perspective of risk. Understanding of risk is important for everyone who's related to the place, the heritage, to the community. I would also like to invite again anyone who's in the Zoom room, if they would like to build further on what Sneha has been talking about, or if they would like to propose a question based on the day's sessions or yesterday's sessions as well.
There is a question from Saima Iqbal.
Yes, we just answered that one, Mahona.
We took a question, but I just saw someone unmute themselves and they muted themselves back. So please, please don't be shy.
Hi, guys. Well, thank you, Sneha, if I'm pronouncing it correct, for your presentation. It's unfortunate that I actually came a bit late into the meeting, and I missed maybe some part of the presentation. And maybe this question might require you to repeat probably what you have said already in your presentation. So as an architectural conservationist, and from your research that you have been doing, like the one that you have presented, what are the, can I say, intervention measures going forward, which will ensure that heritage, or rather architectural heritage along the coastal areas is well preserved, basing on the projected severity of the effects of climate change as time progresses? What have you suggested and what has been implemented to ensure that at least what we have is conserved, or rather protected? Or what cannot be protected? What are the other measures that ensure that what cannot be protected, or rather what cannot be protected within our means, can still be available to the future generations? Thank you.
Thank you. So, I think what I have gathered from your question is that what solution which I think would benefit the architecture of the site, right? Am I right? That is what was the overall question, right? Okay, so now, I would say there are a few solutions which I have given are at a macro level, and few solutions which are at a micro level. So I think the solutions which are at a micro level could be proceeded in guidance with, of course, with other experts, and the ones which are at macro level, I think they need to be assessed well, whether they will be whether they will actually protect from the rise in sea level, or from the storm surge and such things. Because like I said, that I am a conservation architect, I am not that well trained in terms of understanding that how much capacity of water can that area can bear, or how much thickness is actually needed to stop the water entering in the city. So in that sense, I think there are two different levels where work needs to be done, where, like I said, having capacity training of training children with swimming, or having a GPS app, or having a manual. I think these are the things which can work at an individual level, at a micro level, whereas the other things, I think it needs to be taken at a much more higher level with the governing bodies. Also, I am sure we'll have, if we are doing something like this in a World Heritage site, we have to make sure that it is not affecting the OUV value. So a lot of things needs to go parallel. So I think if I give a solution, to be honest, I do not know whether it will work 100%. It can maybe not even work, to be honest. It might not work for something which I have already proposed. But yes, that idea, that concept can be taken forward with having other people's expertise. So again, like I said, I think I'm working as an individual with what I think is right, but I need to have a community to make it work, or to protect the World Heritage Site.
Thank you for the clarification.
Thank you.
We have two other questions in the chat. A question for the group. In the work that we all are doing to mitigate climate effects on cultural heritage, it seems that a persistent barrier is the gap between communities who want action and governments who have the power to take action. How have you seen this successfully overcome? How would you overcome it?
I think I'll read the question again. Just a moment.
Yes, go ahead.
In the work that how do I see that this can be successfully overcome? I think, see, if I talk about Bombay, we have a complete bylaw system which happens in Bombay, where we have a heritage conservation committee in place in the municipal corporation. So I think taking these solutions, or taking these ideas to them, and or asking them to make a wing in climate in a way of protecting climate change. I think that could be one of the solution to make it successful, in a way also to bringing government, people, experts together. That could be one platform, I think, with the governing council. Because when I talk about when I talk about the heritage conservation committee, it includes all expertise, like from a conservation architect, from the municipal commissioner, from expert who is in climate, from environment, from engineer, and so on. So I think taking this work to them, I think, could be one of the way maybe to overcome this gap which is there.
Thank you, Sneha, for answering that. And I think it also touched a bit on Sima's question, but if there's
Right,
anything
yes.
you
What
want
are
to
the
add, yeah, next steps, exactly.
next steps? Yeah, I think the next step would be that. And along with that, I think, talking with maybe the person who has actually nominated the site of the World Heritage, who has actually worked on the preparation. I think I think, maybe the first step, I would say, in a way of going and maybe putting these things in the dossier, or putting it through the committee, that maybe we need to consider this. So I think that could be the next step.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. And actually part of next steps is what we'll be moving into now. So thank you so much, Sneha, for joining us today and sharing your amazing case study and answering our questions and getting a lively discussion going. I think I'm still surprised I learned something new about Dutch.
I'm so glad you did. I'm so glad. I think my purpose of presenting is served now. At least I'm getting to know that someone has learned something.
Exactly. Yes. So that's very good. And then actually building upon what we've just been discussing. So you have really demonstrated the importance for in risk assessments to really look into the future, because then it's only by looking into the future a long period of time and understanding the risks that we face in the future that we can really understand the value as well of knowledge from the past, knowledge from nature. But however, and I wonder if you agree with this as well, is that part of risk scenarios does involve a lot of thinking about or imagining a future disaster, how everything could potentially go wrong. And this is a very crucial part of the process, but it's not perhaps the most uplifting vision to have of the future, to be constantly thinking about climate change. And it might even be demotivating for some. So this is the part of the session which we're calling the positive change envisioning exercise. So we would like to bring everyone together now to try and come up with a way to inspire ourselves and motivate ourselves to take action in the face of climate change. And we will be doing this through the positive change envisioning exercise. Mahona, could you please share the PowerPoint? So first we will be sharing some examples of initiatives or projects started by individuals. And I think this really touches on the quote that Sneha shared and also the question asked by Dr. Enlecki about how to bridge the gap between the community and the government. So we're bringing these examples today about initiatives started by individuals that are really fighting climate change or trying to mitigate its effects. So we're first starting with an example of ice stupa glaciers, and I'll let the video speak for itself.
July, as we greet in Ladakh. I'm Sonam Wangchuk, an educationist, engineer, and innovator at the Sekmol Institute. What you are seeing are 5,000 trees that were planted by the entire village of Pyang together with the monks of the monastery on the inauguration day of the Ice Stupa artificial glacier, which is a very, very simple technique that stores water that normally goes waste in the streams during the winter in the form of huge ice cones, or traditionally stupas of ice. These ice stupas are shaped geometrically in such a way that they don't melt until late spring. That's when the villagers face acute shortage of water nowadays due to climate change and disappearing glaciers. And the melting ice stupas provide that important water at the right time.
Gunla tene mane gunda sum jiji tene kon ike charles mane mang pozat sigmola justane tene kon lotuk mane banji ke kon juste ten te dan tene ngata pian rompe charzo tene kon sangma tuste tene ika gunchere tene charles ate ye yurao kintrela ma gunla mane jangne ten somba sangma skales bado mang posket.
And now we hope to take this proven technique to new heights and new worlds.
Thank you, Mahona. And
Kelly,
then
are
will...
we ready for the next
yes,
video?
yes, definitely. Go right ahead.
Let's turn trash into cash. My name is Nzambi Mate. I'm the founder of Jijenge Makers Limited, and we convert plastic waste into building products. Plastic waste is not just a Kenya problem, but it's a worldwide problem. And here in Nairobi, we generate about 500 metric tons of plastic waste every single day, and only a fraction of that is recycled. We decided, what more can we do instead of just sitting in the sidelines and complaining? Essentially, companies have to pay to dispose the waste. So we solve their problem. The waste essentially comes for free.
And the last video.
Who is the King of Kings? Who is the Lord of Lords? Who is the Prince of Peace?
Okay, thank you, Mahona. So thank you for sharing those videos. We chose those examples because they demonstrate that amazing projects or even solutions to problems start as a simple idea. We want to really emphasize that. And while these projects are, of course, brought to life with the collaboration of others, and they have roots in other ideas, an initiative like these always starts as a simple idea, and an idea can come from anyone. So we now ask everyone who's in the session with us to please think of your hometown, your community, your neighborhood, and to think of any small-scale ideas or initiatives that are part of building a better future. And we ask you to, take some time, a minute or two, to try and think of something. And then as you're thinking of this, try to keep it in mind, that feeling of, well, I was, for example, inspired by the videos. Just take a minute to think about an example. Thank you. And we would like to invite everyone to keep that idea in mind. So keep it in the back of your mind. And based off of these ideas of initiatives, small scale grassroots initiatives, trying to make a better future, we now will start on this journey together. And we invite everyone to dream about a future, to really imagine a future. So think 30 years into the future, of very similar time slice to what Sneha was sharing, and to imagine how you want your heritage to feel like. We've been talking for these past couple of days about a people-centered approach to heritage. And part of that is the connection you feel to your heritage, the emotions it evokes, the rituals you practice there. So please imagine how you want your heritage to feel, taste, or look like in 30 years' time. Put aside any thoughts about climate change, limitations in resources, anything that makes you think that's not possible to do. And now we ask you to hold that dream in your mind and to think even further, what would you want your legacy to be? How can we be a good ancestor? So with this prompt in mind, we would we're going to put the group into 2 rooms in order to discuss these feelings and visions and ideas openly. So definitely, if you haven't thought of anything yet, do make sure you try to really consider this question about what dream you have for the future, what you can imagine for the possibilities of your own heritage, your own communities.
I will put everyone in 2 breakout rooms and we will come back in 5 minutes to the main room.
Yes, thank you. So we were just, Tatena just recapped his vision for the future for us. And then I think we're inviting still, if other people wanted to still share and hadn't had the opportunity to share their vision yet, please do take this chance to share it. It's very inspiring to listen to everyone's visions. For Mahona, then I think we can move on to the next very exciting step. Yes, this is what we wanted to show. So if everyone can please use the URL link, the web link in the chat, and then to capture their vision in a couple of words and submit it. And we will see it appearing here. And then we'll be making.
So just to recapitulate for those of you who joined us late, our question to the group together is that there are, while in this conference, we have been discussing impacts of climate change. We've been using words like imminent threat, climate crisis, how droughts, strong storms, floods, they're devastating our heritage, both the physical heritage as well as intangible heritage. But the purpose of us meeting together is that so many people are joined here, 1,500 have registered. There must be some positive energy. There are small actions going on everywhere, and people have positive ideas. So this exercise is a positive envisioning exercise, what we would want our heritage to look like 30 years from now, what we would like it to taste, what we would like it to feel. And we've had some wonderful ideas. There's still, there was in the previous chat some ideas, still there are, I think Claudia just wrote something about laws in a country. So now if you click on the link, which is in the chat, it will take you to a Mentimeter where you should add some words about your heritage, and we will together build a hopescape, which we hope will be populated since it's a hopescape, and we will share it with the larger conference, and we will try to repeat this exercise during the conference if we can. Otherwise, we will take this hopescape into our final session and start our final session with the hopescape. So thank you. So please go ahead and enter your words.
If anyone is unable to use the Mentimeter, please let me know and I can add your phrases on there for you. Ah, this is starting to look lovely. I like sense of togetherness and so of course, yeah, celebrating the revived. I think that was from my breakout room, talking about everything that we have lost, being able to revive it again. Then we'll enter the last few phrases. Thank you so much to everyone who has shared their visions with us. If you weren't able to submit yours on Mentimeter, please type it in the chat and we'll make sure to add it to the Hopescape. And then as the last few phrases are added, I invite Aparna to conclude on the implications of the session and the Hopescape overall. Mahona, we have proportionate as a word to be added.
Okay, sorry.
Not a problem. I was just saying, Aparna, if this is good time, then I would invite you to make concluding remarks about the Hopescape and what we can do next using the session.
Yeah. But I thought you still have some words coming in. You have Claudia who's saying, no, you have Claudia. I think you registered Claudia.
Yes.
It's proportionate, collaboration, thriving. Those words are still coming in. And
yes, Mahona, if you can add them, that would be great.
yeah. And then you have a whole message from Claudia. And then there is Ragda who says, raise awareness.
Yes, very important.
Very important. So I think we didn't want people to limit, but we also wanted, the emotions to come up. And we wanted this to be, something which is, an idea can only take wings when it touches something deep inside you. And heritage is actually, as we have been discussing from the very beginning, day one to yesterday's lecture that we had from Laura Jane Smith, it is that deep connection. And it is a practice, it is a performance of something from our past that we bring into our present, and something that invokes a sense of, feeling in you, a sense of identity. So I hope all these words are owned by us as a group and they mean something. This was a small exercise, but we wanted to end this day with a hopescape, that somewhere in these words, together we will make meaning. And they may look disjointed, but each of these words have some, some weight, some meaning. And together, if put together in creative combinations, this will make for powerful ideas. And I hope we can find moments to keep on populating our hopescape. We will also, if you have ideas, keep on writing to us at ccp@ecrom.org, and we will take up your idea. And if you think we can take this exercise or develop it in another way to get, feedback and input from other groups in other sessions, please let us know. And we will try to follow your suggestions. So thank you so much for your attention for today, day 3 of Climate, Culture, Peace. There's another one, risk mitigation. So I hope you can keep the hopescape and keep on sharing it as people are writing. So thank you so much for your attention. Thank you so much for your input and for following different sessions of Climate, Culture, Peace. Tomorrow again is a full day with lots of panels coming. Those of you who have registered will also be receiving the email from the CCP team. And we hope to have another full day of interactions with you, learning and sharing stories, experiences, and ideas. Thank you so much for being with us.